Okay, so here we go then with a sort of trial Batrep small game of Soldiers of Napoleon. Now, all the preamble to the game has been done, and the forces have been deployed, and we're ready to go. But just to give you an idea of how you have to set the game up, first you have to compose your army and balance the points. And as I was explaining on an earlier video, I'm limited in the number of Russian figures that I have. So I started by working out the available points I had for the Russians, and that worked out at about 421. And then I picked a French list because I had more to choose from the French, and matched that close enough to 424, so they're virtually similar sizing points. I did have to, though, really bend the rules in order to be able to play those Russian units, because some of them don't belong or shouldn't go together in the same brigades according to the army list. So I've had to bend the rules in that respect and put different categories of troop types into the same brigade, which actually is not allowed in the rules. Then you basically, from that, you can work out the total morale value of the army, and you can work out, including the operational advantages and the scouting advantages and so on, that your army is allowed. Plus you have to choose a kind of tactic, so you can either have an all-out advance or all-out attack, or a steady advance, or a defence tactic, and that will then alter your tactical advantage as well. You roll 2d6 as well to give a random factor, and then you end up with a kind of break point for the army, and also it determines the initiative for the first turn of the game, incorporated into that as well. I didn't explain that very well, but I'm trying to skip over it rather than go into it in detail, because it's quite a long preamble. And when you deploy, the player with the initiative deploys a brigade second. So the player without the initiative has to put a brigade down on the table, then the player with the initiative, and you alternate until you've got all your brigades on the table. You have a deployment area that you can choose as well. So you're looking at the moment from the Russian side of the line, and they won the initiative, and they chose a defence tactic and to deploy with the centre forward, and so their centre brigade is further forward than their two flanking brigades. And also, because they had a defence tactic, on a dice roll of 4 plus, they're allowed to put down 20 paces of defences like gabions and so on, into their deployment area, and they rolled successfully. So they've got a defence work across the road there, deployed quite far forward because they were centre forward deployment. And then on the French side, they have 3 brigades as well. Only 2 of them are on the table though, so they are deployed in a line abreast, which they're obliged to do if there are only 2 brigades deployed at the beginning of the game. The 3rd brigade is a heavy cavalry brigade. It consists of a single regiment of cuirassiers. They have to be in reserve at the beginning of the game, and you roll to determine which turn they can potentially come on, and they roll to potentially come on at the end phase of turn 3, but you have to dice for it. They don't automatically come on, and you have to also write down which area of the table they're going to come on from, of your table edge. So they're going to come on in the centre, where the road goes off the table there. Right, I'll just take the camera off the tripod and get a little bit closer so that you can see the various troop types and the cards that have been dealt out, etc. Okay, so we'll start off with the French side. This is the Divisional Commander, which basically represents you on the tabletop. He has 2 figures next to him. Now they represent, you roll a d3, and then that determines how many command points the Divisional Commander has during the game. By spending command points, so once he spends a command point, a figure is removed. You can either spend the command points to deal yourself an additional action card if you have less dealt to you than your opponent, or you can spend the command point to re-roll 1d6 roll, and that can come in quite handy as well. And next to him is a card which you draw from the pack at the beginning of the game, and that is because he chose an all-out assault tactic. He has to have a battlefield objective of Grand Assault, and Grand Assault basically means in one turn 4 of his units have to have engaged in melee. They don't have to have won the melee, but 4 units have to engage in melee in a single turn, and then he has won that battlefield objective, and it will give him additional victory points. These are the 6 cards which he has in his hand for the first turn. He gets 6 cards because he has 2 automatically, 1 card for his own command stand, and 1 for each of his 3. Actually, I'm going to take 1 off because as the brigade command for the reserve formation isn't on the table, he shouldn't have that card, so we'll take that off the table. Apologies for that. And then over here, this is 1 brigade here. It goes up to and includes this foot artillery here, which is a howitzer, and it basically consists of 3 line regiments, one of which, this one here, I'm going to call veteran. It's just worth a little bit more in points, and they're slightly better in melee. That's the only difference. And then the 2nd brigade he's got on the table is a Dragoon Brigade. So 2 regiments of dragoons, 4 stands each, and a battery of horse artillery. Now I'll take you over to the Russian side. Okay, so this is the Russian commander. He has 4 command points. Now you can achieve 4 command points with using a d3, believe it or not, because he rolled 3 on the d3, but because the Russian side has the initiative for the first turn, the tactical advantage as well, he gains an additional command point. So he's got 4 command points, which are going to come in very handy. And all 3 of his brigades are deployed on the table. Again, oh yeah, no, I'll go into that in a moment. But as I say, I've had to combine different troop types, so you should really just have light infantry. So there's a regiment of 3 stands of Jaegers there, and another regiment here, which are in an extended line formation. But these are light cavalry, hussars, and they shouldn't be in the same brigade, but I've stretched the rules. And this is their commander, which is a Russian figure, fortunately, an aide-de-camp. He's going to be the brigade commander. The centre brigade, I'm having to use a British officer to represent the Brigade Commander because I just don't have the figures. Got a battery of 2 stands of 20-pounder cannon in defence works, and 2 line regiments, one there, one there. So that's that brigade. And then the 3rd brigade, again, I've had to blend together different troop types. So I've got a regiment of Grenadiers, Pavlovsky Grenadiers, 5 stands, and a regiment of Cuirassiers, 4 stands, heavy cavalry. So they shouldn't be in the same brigade as the Grenadiers, but you know, stretching the rules in order to get figures on the table to make a game. And again, both the Cuirassiers and the Grenadiers are reserve formations, but you can pay additional points, which is what I've done, 20% more in cost, and that is to the 4 strategy, which allows you to place them on the table at the beginning of the game. And their brigade commander is an Austrian general, again having to stand in for my lack of figures for the Russians. And I think that's everything. Yeah, basically I'll explain a bit more about the terrain. There is a terrain generator that I could have used, but I just put some stuff down on the table. The river is just a linear obstacle, I'm calling it, so it will slow movement down, but it is passable. Yeah, I might say that artillery can only cross at the bridges, and that bridge, if you cross at that bridge, you have to be in march column, but I'm allowing, this one is slightly wider, so I'm allowing that to be crossed in assault column. And yeah, let's get on with the game. Maybe I should have said as well in the preamble that you have to prepare the cards, the pack of action cards, and you always, every time you have to reshuffle them or deal them at the beginning of the game, you have to subtract D6 cards at random from the pack. So as you go through the game, the pack is slowly diminishing, and if you do get to the end and haven't got any more cards, then night has fallen and the game is over that way, but it doesn't usually get to that. So the first thing I'm going to do then, the Russians have the initiative. I'm going to play this card here for its orders, so a brigade commander can issue 3 orders, and I'm going to place that on the middle brigade there, and there are the commander is within 10 paces of all 3 units under his command, so he can give each one an order. So the first thing he's going to do is order the artillery to bombard the enemy artillery. Okay, so there are 2 guns and it's firing round shot, so that gives him 2 dice to begin with. The unit is at the moment is impeccable, which means they're in good order and they have no disruption markers, so that will give them another dice. They're firing against another battery though, so that removes 2 dice, so they're down to 1. And the target is obscured in that it's behind a wall, so it is partly obscured, so that would theoretically take them down to 0 dice, but you always use 1 dice. And let's roll it and see what we get, but I think they're hitting on 4+, but I'll check that in a moment. They get a 5, so I'm pretty sure that's a hit. Let's just check. Oh yeah, it hits on 5+, so they were lucky there. They did get a hit. And there's no saving throw against artillery. There is a kind of saving throw against volley fire, musketry, but that will put a disruption marker onto that howitzer right at the beginning of the game. Okay, so there was the target, and they just get 1 disruption marker. There's only 1 stand there, so that is a problem for them already. They're going to have to rally that off or either if they get one more disruption marker, they'll be off the table at the end of the first turn, or if they remain with the one disruption marker, then it will give a victory point to the Russians at the end of the first turn. So either way, they really need to get rid of that, and it takes away their impeccable firing bonus as well, so it's a problem for them. Okay, on to the other part of that brigade's orders. Okay, so with the other two orders, I'm just going to order both the line regiments to move forward. Now they're in column of march, so normally they would move 6 inches, but they're both about to enter difficult terrain. I'm calling this hill difficult terrain, and the wood is definitely difficult terrain. So instead of moving 6 inches, they move D6 inches, so it could be 6 inches or it could be a lot less. So this unit here is moving 5 inches, and this unit here is moving 4. Right, there we are then, that's the 2 units now move forward. Both the Russian artillery and the French howitzer have a property called lob shot, so that means that they don't even need line of sight to their target. They can fire over intervening terrain and intervening units, so it doesn't matter if that unit begins to block their block the line of sight to the howitzer, the French howitzer, because it will still be able to fire at it over the heads of the friendly troops in between. It's now French turn to play a card, and looking at their hand, just show you, in their hand they have this card here, which I'm going to save till quite late in the turn, because the special event is an event called Stand Fast, which is a single unit that is in hard cover, immediately reduces its disruption by 4 points. Now that is going to come in very handy on that artillery battery there, because they are behind hard cover, because they're behind a stone wall which counts as hard cover. So I'm going to use that at the end of the turn to take off up to 4 disruption points that stand might have, and that will potentially save them. So I'm going to play this card here for its orders. So there are 6 potential orders there now. The commander is within 10 paces of the 3 line regiments, so he's going to order those all forward, so they are in column of attack, so they'll be able to move forward 6 inches each. And he's going to order the howitzer to bombard the counter battery fire on the Russian battery. Now you get 1 dice for the stand, and you would get another one if he didn't have that disruption marker, but he does, and then you'd have to take 2 off for it being counter battery fire, so it would be down to 0. So it's just going to get 1 dice to roll, and again, forgotten to look at what he needs to hit. Just look at that quickly. It's firing common shell, so he needs 5+ to hit. So same factors as before, and he gets 5. Yeah, brilliant. So that will place 1 disruption marker on the Russian battery. Right, there we are then. So the 3 line regiments have moved forward 6 paces, and at the end of the action, the brigade commander is allowed to move 10 paces, so he's moved up with the line infantry. I don't remember if I said, but it required, he was over 10 paces away from the artillery, so that ate up 2 orders, so he actually spent 5 orders out of the 6 in total there. I didn't have a card that had 5 orders on it, so I had to play the 6th. And I've placed a disruption marker on the Russian artillery, so we're back to the Russians' action next. Okay, now back to the Russian turn to have an action phase, and if I were to play a card on that centre brigade again, it would begin to tire the units that I ordered. So there's no need to do that at the moment, there's no emergency, so I'm going to play a card to give 4 orders, so 1 each to the 4 units that are in this brigade here. Now I've made a kind of an error of judgment rather than a mistake in the rules, because I placed this this unit here in extended order, thinking that was an advantage to them, but it isn't. It just allows interpenetration to take place of units and so on. I thought, being light infantry, they benefited from being in extended order, but they don't. Quite the reverse. If they're attacked and they're in extended order, they suffer more casualties. But anyway, I'm not going to change things now. So infantry in line can move forward 4 paces. This unit here is in difficult terrain though, so they move d6 paces, but they can't move more than their allowance, which is 4. So they roll 2, so they can move forward 2 inches. And then the other 3 units can just move their normal allowance, which is 4 for the infantry and 8 for the 2 cavalry units, the light cavalry units. Okay, back to the French, and they only have 2 brigades on the table at the moment, so really they're kind of obliged to give the order or give a card to the 2nd brigade on the table, so as to avoid giving the units in the 1st brigade disruption markers. So I've chosen a card that's got 3 orders, and he's within 10 of each of the 3 units under his command, so he's going to order the all 3 to march basically. So the heavy cavalry dragoons in line, are they in line? They're more in column. They're in column, aren't they? So heavy cavalry in column can move 9 inches. So that would take them over the hedge, so they have to reduce their movement over the hedge by d3. So they've rolled 3, so that would go down to 2, so they can move forward 7 inches. It takes them just on top of the hedge. So what I'll do with the following Dragoon regiment is just move them up behind rather than do anything fancy. You are allowed to, what's the word, echelon or whatever it is, move 1 stand width's base to the right or left, but I'm not going to bother. Now the Lindbergh light artillery can move 16 paces or 16 inches. Again, same thing, they don't have any extra difficulty of going over linear obstacles, they just reduce their movement by d3. So they've rolled 6, so they're going to move 3 inches less, which means they can move 13 inches. So that takes them right up to the river's edge. So that would be quite a good place to unlimber probably. Now the extended line, I was saying earlier, there are some advantages to it. If they were to go over a linear obstacle rather than difficult terrain, they only reduce their movement by 1 inch, which is probably what I was thinking with those Russians over there. And then now I can move the Brigade Commander 10 inches, and I haven't found anything in the rules to say otherwise, so I think basically he ignores terrain, so he can move over difficult ground and so on. That's the way I'm going to interpret the rules anyway. I haven't found anything to say otherwise in the rules. So that's back. It's now back to the Russians. Okay, so the middle brigade is going to receive orders again now, and similar to before, only the brigade commander is now more than 10 paces away from the two infantry regiments. So in order to order all three, he's going to have to use 2 orders on one regiment, 2 orders on another, and 1 order on the artillery. So that's going to take a card with 5 orders on it, which luckily he has. So the artillery is going to fire at the French howitzer there again. Now this time he's no longer impeccable because he has a disruption marker on him. So it would be 2 stands, -2 for counter battery fire, but you can always roll 1 dice. So he's rolling 1 dice, needing 5+ to hit. 4. No, so this time he doesn't score a hit, and then the other 2 units are moving forward through difficult terrain. So the one furthest from the camera is moving 2 inches, and the one nearest the camera is also moving 2 inches. Okay, back to the French now. The French weren't dealt a very good hand for the first turn, and the only cards they have left now are all 3 orders only. One of them they want to keep for that special event to rally off the disruption markers. So this brigade now can only give 3 orders, and it's going to take 2 orders to order the artillery. But I do want to sustain fire on that Russian battery. So the first thing I'm going to do is spend 2 orders firing at the enemy battery, and we know it's going to be just 1 dice and needs 5s to hit, and they get a 3, so no joy there. And the other thing he's going to do is order the column here just to move forward 6 inches, because it can cross the bridge in column of attack, so they're going to move forward 6 inches. Right, so back to the Russians now, and this brigade here, I have got a card that's got 5 orders on it, but it's got quite a useful special event that I'm trying to save to see if that comes in handy. So I'm going to give them a card with 3 orders on, which means that he can now only order 3 of the 4 units under his command. So he's definitely going to move these Jaegers forward to try and get them behind the stone wall. So they're in difficult ground, so they move d6 inches up to a maximum of 4, and they roll 4, so yeah, they can move forward 4 inches, which gets them easily behind the stone wall, gives them a bit hard cover. And then the 2 lines of cavalry, light cavalry, can move 8 inches forward. So they're just going to move forward 8 inches. As I say, you are allowed to shift 1 base to the right or left, 1 base width, so I'll do something like that, and that's the end of the Russian turn. Maybe move the commander forward a little bit. Back to the French. So again, he's only got 3 orders now. It's going to take 2 for him to order the artillery to unlimber. So he can only give 1 order over here, so he's going to order the first unit of dragoons just to move forward. Right, there we are then. So the horse artillery has unlimbered, and the dragoons just reached the river, which is I'm counting as a linear obstacle. So next turn they reduce their movement by d3.
to cross it.
Okay, so both players need to be a bit careful now. Here it's back to the the Russians to play a card. They have 2 left. The French only have 1 card left, which is the one that they're going to use the special event for, to remove disruption markers from that howitzer. Now the Russians have a card, this is the one I was holding back for them, that's got an interesting special event. A single unit of militia or trained troops which is within 10 paces of at least one enemy unit gains +3 plus D3 disruption as they start to waver in the face of determined looking enemy. So I was thinking that maybe the Hussars would get close enough to a unit on their left flank to use that, but the line infantry that is crossing the bridge is seasoned, so it can't be used on them. So I was looking here because that light horse artillery is also within 10 paces of this line infantry here, but again they are seasoned troops, so it can't be used on them. So in other words, that special event is, I'm going to not be able to use it this turn, so I'm going to save that card, which has 5 orders, to play last, to get this artillery to fire at the French again, because by that time they will have had to have played their card, so I might be able to inflict further disruption markers on them, which they won't be able to rally off, and they'll be there for the end phase. So I'm going to play a 3 order card here, simply to move these 2 units forward here.
Right, there we are then. So the Grenadiers, which are on your right, move forward in open ground. They were allowed to shuffle a little bit to their left, so they move forward their full distance, but the cavalry moving over difficult terrain. So the only difference with cavalry and infantry moving over difficult terrain is that the cavalry roll 2d6 and use the highest roll of the 2, again up to the maximum of their normal movement allowance. They can't move further in difficult terrain than they could in normal terrain. Right then, now the Russians now have to play their last card. If they had fewer cards than... Sorry, the French now have to play their last card. If they had fewer cards than the Russian player, they could pass, but if you have equal to or more than the cards that your opponent has, you have to play it. So they're going to play this for its special ability, Stand Fast. So I can't get it quite in focus, which allows them to remove up to 4 points of disruption. So that can come off. And now the Russian player has a final card to play, which he's going to play for the orders. So he has 5 orders, and that will allow his middle brigade to move the 2 line regiments further forward, and the artillery to fire counter battery against this artillery here. So again, we know that they can only roll 1 dice, needing 5s to hit. So if they're lucky and get 5 or 6, then that's going to give them some victory points in the end phase of this turn, which is just about to end. But they fail, they only get a 1. So that's all the cards played now, and now we're on to the end phase of turn 1. Right, now in this particular end phase there isn't much to do. You wouldn't expect there to be in turn 1. No broken units, no commanders who came close to the enemy and were put at risk, no units that have got equal to the number of disruption markers, etc, etc. So really all there is to do is determine which side has the initiative for the next turn, and that is done by rolling 2d6 for each side and adding what's called the tactical modifiers, which I worked out at the beginning of the game. So the Russians will add 2 to their dice roll and the French 1. So the French are blue, Russians are yellow and green colour dice. So the Russians rolled 3, so they add 2 to that, getting 5. The French rolled 6, adding 1 to that, getting 7. So the French will have the initiative for the next turn. Had the result been double the Russian result or treble, they would have scored victory points, because it meant that this roll is called How Goes the Day, and it would have meant that their side is gaining the advantage on the overall battlefield, but that's not the case here. So it's just a matter of giving the French the initiative in turn 2. Right, turn 2, and both sides have been dealt quite interesting hands. I have definitely shuffled the action card pack well, but it's thrown up some unusual permutations of the special events. So the French have the initiative, so they go first, even though they've only got 5 cards to the Russian 6. They have the opportunity to go first in this turn, and they have got 2 cards with the special event artillery bombards on it, which reads: the foot artillery's larger guns deployed further back off table are firing onto this tabletop. Pick a single enemy infantry or cavalry unit in the open, not within 10 paces of a friendly unit. Roll 5 dice, any 5+ scores a hit. The targeted unit gains 1 point of disruption for each hit. So they're definitely going to play that card first of all on those Russian Grenadiers who are out in the open and who are worth quite a lot, because they were originally a reserve formation. I paid more for them to come on the table. They're actually worth 3 morale value points rather than their normal 2. So that would definitely boost the French victory points if they can get those off the table. So here we go with the first roll. So I'm rolling, excuse me, 5 dice, needing 5s to hit. And I've scored 3, brilliant, already. So that's 3 disruption markers on them. Now, as I was saying with special events, they have a number after it in brackets, in this case 5+, which allows you to play another card if you roll over 5. So let's see if they can be lucky again. No, but that's still 3 disruption markers on the Grenadiers. Okay, now over to the Russians to play a card, and they're going to immediately respond to that bombardment by playing a special event on this card here, which is Stalled. And this reads: play on a single enemy unit that is militia, trained or seasoned. Now these are veteran line who are seasoned. They are delayed, double checking orders, sorting out the ranks and files, etc., and may not receive any order to move in any way for the rest of this turn. The unit remains stationary. It may not march, manoeuvre, withdraw move or charge this turn. So they are stuck there, blocking that bridge for the rest of this turn. They can fire and melee, and change formation, I suppose, but they can't. They can change formation, but they can't move in any other way. And again, there's a 5+ on that. So if I roll over 5, it allows me to play another card. So let's see what we get. 1 again. So again, no further play. Okay, French turn then, and I think it would be wise to redirect the horse artillery battery direction of fire here so that they can threaten these Russians about to cross the river. So I have to play. I want to keep the card that's got five orders, because that's another one of those. Oh no, it's not. No, it's not. Yeah, no, I'm going to play a card that's got 5 orders on it, and order. This brigade commander is going to order. Takes 2 orders for those to march because they're outside 10 paces. 2 orders for that to manoeuvre so it can turn to face these Russians, and 1 order which for this to move forward as well. And they will move up to the linear obstacle. No, beg pardon. They will move their normal distance of 9 minus d3 inches, crossing that linear obstacle there. Whereas the these will do the same. Right, there we are then. So both the Dragoon regiments move 6 inches and have paid the penalty for crossing the 2 linear obstacles so they can move normally next turn. The gun has turned and is now facing those Russian infantry about to cross the stream or river. Right, now in the Russian phase, I really want that line regiment that's about to cross the stream to sweep away the horse artillery, but at the moment they're not going to reach it this turn. If I order a charge, then they can sort of turn 45 degrees during their forward movement, but sacrifice half of their movement in order to do that. And anyway, the gun is outside of a 45 degree turn. It's more like sort of 70 or 80 degrees. So the only thing they can really do is in this turn, in this phase, is to wheel while they're on that side of the stream, so that they're pointing directly at the gun, and then attempt to charge next turn and hope that their move will get them to reach the gun. So it's not going to be easy, but I think that's the best thing to do. So what's going to happen is that brigade is going to have a card played on it with 5 orders, and that it requires 2 orders for an order to reach that particular regiment, and then 1 to fire the battery and 1 to get the other line regiment moving. So that will be 4. So I'll be wasting an order, but anyway, that's what I'm going to do. Right, there we are then. So this line regiment only lost an inch of movement crossing the stream. They are now facing the gun, so hopefully they'll reach it in the next turn. And I've already moved the brigade commander, but I've still got to fire the battery of artillery. So we know that they need 1. They can only roll 1 dice, needing a 5 to hit. 1, no, so they don't get any hits on the French artillery. Okay, now the French have to activate this brigade really, rather than the one with the horse artillery battery in, because otherwise that would be consecutive orders and it would tire them out. So I'm going to use a card with 5 orders on it. Can't do anything about that regiment stalled on the bridge, but he's going to order the other 2 regiments forward, and the howitzer is going to make another attempt to hit the Russian artillery. Okay, single dice then, needing 5 plus 3. No, nothing. Right then, the Russians have 4 cards left, 2 of which have special events that I'm probably going to use. But for the time being, what I want to do is try and get these guys to change formation into line rather than extended line. So I'm going to use 2 orders on this card here. One for those to form line, and one for these to move forward and wheel a little bit to the left, which means they can move half their movement forward 2 inches. And then the other half to do that. And these are going to go there, and that's that card spent, and it's back to the French. The French have 2 cards left, one of which is another one of those artillery bombards, which I want to use to try and catch those Grenadiers out in the open again. So it means I'm going to have to play this card here, 6 orders, and obviously the horse artillery are going to fire at the Russians on the other side of the stream. Those Dragoons there, I want them just to change formation so that they're in line, because the cavalry in column lose dice in a melee, whereas infantry in column of attack, that is, gain dice. And the other Dragoons, I'm just going to get them to move further forward. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4 orders, and then I'm just going to have to waste the other 2 orders. Right, here we go with the artillery fire then. So it's a 6-pounder gun, which means it's going to fire canister, which has a range of 10 inches, and it's within range. So it fires, for canister, it fires 2 dice per stand, and it also gets an extra dice for being impeccable, in that it's in good order and doesn't have any disruption markers on it. So it's rolling 3 dice, and with canister it needs 4s to hit. Two hits. Now, as I say, with artillery, none of those hits can be saved. If it had been volley fire, the Russians might have been able to save one of those hits. So there's going to be 2 disruption markers on that Russian infantry. So it's back to the Russians now, and the Russians now have 3 cards to play, whereas the French only have 1. And if you were playing against an opponent, you wouldn't know what cards obviously your opponent held, but because I'm playing solo, I do. And what I'm thinking is that the French player wants to use that final card to bombard the Russian Grenadiers again. So if I were playing blind, the sensible thing would now be for that for these line infantry to charge the gun. But I'm thinking that at least for now, I want to play a special event with one of the Russian-held cards, which is a free bombardment of any artillery on the table, and try and get a disruption marker on the French howitzer, which would either win a victory point in the end phase, or would oblige the French player to use this final card to rally that disruption marker off. So I think that's what I'm going to do, take a bit of a gamble. Okay, here we go then. So these are the 3 Russian cards that are still in his hand. 2 of them have this intense cannonade, which is all deployed artillery batteries in the army, regardless of their position on the battlefield, are given the bombard order and immediate resolve their fire as normal. So I've got 2 of those, and I've got 1 card which has got 2 orders on it that I can use to charge that horse artillery later in the game. So I'm going to start then by having playing this special event here, So we know again that we're only rolling 1 dice, counter battery fire against the howitzer, needing 5. And again, I'm running really low today. It gets a 1. So if I roll the number in brackets there, which is 5 or 6, then I can play another card immediately. And I do this time. So I'm going to play... Where's it gone? Stuck to the dice tray. The other intense cannonade, and do the same thing again. So another round of fire from that gun, and this isn't a consecutive order. You can play consecutive special events and not tire the unit out. It's only if you play that number at the top that causes tiredness and disruption. So I need another 5 plus, and again a 1. Terrible shooting. And again, if I roll 5 plus, I can play that final card. And I do, I rolled a 5, so I'm going to play this card here. Is that legitimate, or I can't remember which. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's legit. So I'm going to order the middle brigade. I don't think they were the last brigade to have. Apologies if they were, but I don't think they were. So the line infantry are going to attempt to charge the horse artillery. Okay, now had I been canny, I've got 2 orders on the card. It only takes 1 order to order the charge. But the commander on the bridge there is just over 10 paces from the artillery, so it would require 2 orders to get the artillery to bombard again, which they could do because their previous bombardment was a special event and not an order. So all the commander can do with the other spare order, is to get these guys to move further forward. So they're going to move forward, and then those Russians there are going to try and charge the horse artillery, and in order to charge they have to pass a discipline test, and their discipline is 4 plus, and they fail it, and you get a 3, which means they don't charge. They get a disruption marker, an extra disruption marker, but they are allowed now to volley fire instead, and we know they're within 10 inches, which is the musket range, so they can fire 2 dice at the horse artillery in terms of 2 stands at the front of the column, firing their muskets into the horse artillery. Okay, so the line regiment is firing with 2 stands, so it gets 2 dice. It's got disruption markers on it now, so it's not qualified for the impeccable qualification, extra dice, so it needs 5s to hit. And it gets 1 hit, 6. Now, against volley fire from muskets, the French are allowed to save 1 hit if they pass their discipline test. And then I've forgotten the horse artillery. They are seasoned. They need to roll 4 or above. Yeah, that's right, 4 or above to save 1 hit. And they do, just. That's lucky because it's the end turn now. For end phase very nearly, and they would have needed to have done something about that, but they've saved the casualty. Right, back to the French now, and they're going to use the final card in their hand for the artillery bombard special event. So they're going to roll 5 dice, needing 5s to hit on those Grenadiers out in the open. they get 2 hits, 6 and 5. So that's significant actually. Show you that in a moment. Okay, there's the significance. That's the Russian Grenadier Regiment, and they only have 5 stands, and they now have 5 disruption markers. So they're not broken, they're not taken off the table. That would require 6 disruption markers, but it does give the first victory point of the game to the French. So we sort of keep a tally of that as the game goes on. So the French now have 1 victory point. There's nothing else to do in the end phase because there are no broken regiments. There were no commanders at risk, no reserves coming on, so it's just how goes the day. So we roll 2d6 for each side. The French in blue add 1, the Russians add 2, and this is to see who gets initiative in the next turn. So the French add 1 to 5, making 6. Ooh, and the Russians add 2 to 9, making 11. So that's not quite double. That would have given the Russians a victory point if that had been the case. So the Russians have the initiative for turn 3. Okay, turn 3 then. Russians have the initiative, and again, I'm tempted by a lot of the special events that are on their cards. Excuse me. So I'm going to place some of those straight away. The first one is Steady Lads, which reads: a single infantry or cavalry unit can immediately reduce its disorder by 3 points as they find some extra grit and courage. So I would want to use that on the Grenadiers to reduce their disruption from 5 down to 2, which will make them a lot safer. So I'm taking 3 disruption markers off the Grenadiers, off camera there. And now my plan is I have to roll above 4 in order to play another card. And I'm hoping this works, but if it fails, I've got a plan. It's failed, so I'm going to re-roll that dice by spending one of the Divisional Commander's 4 command points. So he's now down to 3. And we re-roll it again, try and get above 4. And we do, 5. So I can now play another card. And I'm going to play similar, well, the same special event as I had in the last one. Stalled, play on a single enemy unit that is militia, trained or seasoned. They are delayed, double checking orders, sorting out the ranks and files, etc. I may not receive any order to move in any way for the rest of this turn. So I'm going to play exactly the same card on the same unit, the veteran, where are they? Those guys there. Those chaps on the bridge, crossing the bridge, are stalled again, and they're going to stick there for another complete turn. So it's quite a good idea to play that at the very beginning of the turn. Now, that was, you can carry on like this, so that was a 5+. To see if I can roll another card. And I don't, I fail. I think though I'm not going to spend another one of the divisional command points. I'm not sure. I'm going to look in the rules anyway to see if that's allowed, but I don't want to spend it anyway, so that's the end of the Russian turn. Okay, so just to clarify that rule then, there's the Russian commander, and his command points are now down to 3 from 4. It says in the rules that you can't use another command point to re-roll a failed re-roll, but it doesn't say that you can't use a command point to re-roll another roll that has failed for the first time, if that makes sense. So I could have spent another point and tried to re-roll that, fell, but I didn't want to spend the point. But anyway, maybe I should have done, because it's now the French turn, and they are going to use this card here, which is probably out of focus, but I'll read to you what it says. It's for the special event, Commander Wounded. So pick an enemy division, corps or army commander. So in this game there are no corps or army commanders. There are only divisional commanders. Roll a d6. On a 5+, the senior command stands become a casualty, hit by a stray round or shrapnel, fallen from his horse, taken ill, etc. Remove the stand and you gain victory points. So for a divisional commander you would gain 2 victory points. So, and also, of course, it would mean that those 3 remaining command points would be lost as well, because the divisional commander is no longer on the table. So this could be quite a crucial role. So I need 5+, and again, it just occurs to me that I could use one of the French command points if it fails to try and re-roll it. Yeah, so I'm going to spend a command point, try and re-roll that, and I get it, yeah. So that's 1 command point off of the French divisional commander, but the Russian divisional commander has been wounded and leaves the table. Okay, back to the Russian side's action phase, and the centre brigade is going to use a 4 orders card. 1 order is going to be to this line regiment here to charge the gun there, and they need to pass a discipline test. They're within 10 inches of the brigade commander, so that just uses up 1 order, and they need to take a discipline test to see if they can do it, and their discipline is 4+. And they pass, yeah, so they're going in. So now the receiving unit has to pass a discipline test. I think they do. Anyway, yeah, I'm just going to check that, or whether you move the charging unit first of all. Hang on a second. Right, yeah, a couple of things just happened off camera there accidentally. The record button didn't seem to acknowledge my pressure, so I missed a couple of dice rolls there. The receiving unit do have to test for their discipline once the attacking unit has checked its own discipline before the unit moves, and they pass that. So then I had to roll to see what distance this unit moved. Now, attack column has a move distance of 6 inches, but it loses D3 inches for going over the linear obstacle of the stream. So it lost 3 inches. So it only had a movement distance of 3 inches, but then it rolls D6 additional inches move for the charge, and it rolled a full 6. So it's got a movement distance now of 9 inches, which I'm fairly confident is going to take it into contact with the horse artillery. Yeah, it's 7 inches, so they're going to move into contact now. Right, so there they are in contact now. So the way you resolve a melee is that the defender rolls his dice first of all. So just while you're looking at that scene there, I'm just going to read out the modifiers. So you get 1 dice per stand, so it's a single stand of artillery, so they get 1 dice for that. You get a dice if you are superior quality, and the horse artillery are seasoned, whereas the Russian infantry are only trained, so they would get an additional dice for being superior quality. Now, it says if the defender has a superior position, i.e. is behind and defendable obstacle. There you are. It's an example of typos that I was talking about in the last video. So that should read is behind a defendable obstacle, such as wall or hedge, occupying buildings, etc. Then add 2 extra dice. Now, is that stream, which does slow your movement down, a defendable obstacle? I would argue yes, it is, just to make the game more interesting. See that, so they get 2 extra dice for that. The next thing that I can see, well, no, I can't see anything. Any other? There are quite a lot of other modifiers, but nothing that applies in this situation. So to hit, once the defender has a number of dice, roll them all to hit, with the defender hitting on the score given under melee in his stats. So the artillery fight with various, which probably means anything they can lay their hands on, and their melee is hitting on 5+, so they have 4 dice hitting on 5+. So let's just go down to the and they've got 1 hit there, a 6. I'm wondering whether to re-roll 1, spend my final command point. Do you know what? I think I will. So at the moment they've got 1 hit, so I'm going to spend that other Divisional Commander's command point, try and get another 5+. No, what a shame. So they've got 1 hit. Right, so that means I think they're in trouble now, because now the attackers roll. So the attacker rolls a number of dice equal to the number of stands in the unit. So that's 6 stands. It's not just the front 2. And then you add the modifiers. So infantry in column of attack formation have extra men pressing behind them and driving them forward. Add 2 dice. So that's another 2 dice. They're not superior quality. They're not cavalry. They're not in disorder. So that's it. So now they're just hitting with their melee statistic, and for the Russian line infantry, they are fighting 4+, they need fighting with bayonets. So they're rolling 8 dice, needing 4s. Yeah, quite a few there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, right. I'm just gonna. That was gonna have repercussions. So I'm just gonna read through the rules and come back to you. Right. Yeah, that was fairly dramatic. So basically, both sides gain an additional disruption marker for having fought in a melee, and both sides become disordered, but the losing side take another amount of disruption markers equal to the difference in the score. So the horse artillery have taken they've taken 1 for being in the melee and another 4 for the difference in the dice rolls. Had they been a infantry unit, a regular sort of regiment, then 3 or more disruption markers would raise the possibility of the enemy capturing their colours, but cavalry and artillery don't have their colours in battle, so there's no possibility of that. But the losing side has to make a withdrawal move, and artillery batteries in melee, if they're forced to make a withdrawal move, then the gunners flee and the guns are captured, so the battery counts as broken. So the Russians score one victory point for winning the melee, but they will now score victory points for breaking an enemy unit, and you roll on a table for that. So the troop quality of the horse artillery is seasoned, so you roll a d6, and they've rolled 3, so a seasoned broken unit would give the Russians an additional 4 victory points. Right, so the horse artillery has come off the table, but to note now is that there is a French Brigade Commander there who is within 10 inches, 10 paces of an enemy unit. So that puts him at risk, which means next turn he won't be able to draw an action card. So that will reduce the number of action cards that the French player has. And we're still on the Russian part of the turn because that was the first order given. So now that brigade commander on the bridge there has to spend 2 orders. It doesn't look it from this distance because of the foreshortening, but he's more than 10 inches away from that artillery, but he's going to order the artillery to fire again at that target there, the French artillery. So we already know from previous rounds that it's 1 dice needing 5s to hit. And he rolls a 2, so no hit. So it's now over to the French player. Okay, so the French brigade over here is going to be given orders. So I've got 3 order card here, only requires 2 now, there's only 2 units left. So the front unit are just going to advance a little bit further. They can't actually charge those Russian cuirassiers in the distance there because they have to stop when they get to difficult ground, and the Russians are in difficult ground, so they couldn't reach them on a charge. But if they go a little bit further, a little bit closer, they're going to sort of invite the cuirassiers to come out and charge them, and then they could countercharge and we could have a cavalry battle there. But the Dragoon regiment a little bit closer are just going to change formation into line in order to then turn and attack the Russian infantry that are just sort of creeping in on the right of the screen there. So they're just going to change formation. Right, there we are. So it's now the Russian turn, or it's the Russian part of the turn, and that brigade in the distance there is going to receive 2 orders. One is to the Grenadiers just to advance, and the other is indeed for the cuirassiers to charge the dragoons, and the dragoons are going to counter-charge. Okay, well, it didn't happen. The Grenadiers moved forward. They didn't need to test or anything to do that, but the cuirassiers needed to pass a discipline test of 3+, and they rolled a 2. So the cuirassiers didn't charge, so the dragoons won't be able to counter-charge. So that's the end of that play of the cards. Okay, now the French are going to play 4 order card, and it's going to be on this brigade here. So off camera, the artillery in this brigade is over 10 inches away from the brigade commander, but they're going to fire, they're still going to fire at the enemy battery. There's some enemy infantry getting close to them, but they're going to ignore them for the time being and lob a shot over at the enemy artillery. And then these 2 units here are going to move forward. So they would normally move d6 inches, but they're going to cross a linear obstacle, so they will each lose d3 inches of movement. So this one here, is going to lose 2 inches, and this one here is going to lose 1 inch. So these guys will move 5 inches forward, so it gets them to the other side of the stream. And these guys will move 4, so it gets them just a little bit further back there. Okay, so I'll just move the rest of the figures off camera. Right, there they are, having moved, and now the artillery there is going to fire at the enemy artillery. So it's 1 dice, needing 5s to hit. It's worth trying this because they've already got 1 disruption marker, so 1 more will make them vulnerable. No, I always throw 1s, don't I? And I've used up all my command points, so I can't re-roll that. Okay, now this Russian Brigade Commander here has got a card with 5 orders on it. He's going to order this unit here, which is just over 10 inches away, so that takes 2 orders, to fire their carbines at this French infantry regiment here, which is just within range of 5 inches. They've only got 1 shot, they can't reload their carbines during battle, but they're going to stay there and fire. But this other unit is going to withdraw, so that's 1, 2, 3, and this one here will be 4. These are just going to move forward and not going to do anything with that because they're in quite a good position there. Right, there we are. So those 2 formations have moved, and it's just for the hussars at the front there to fire their carbines into those French infantry. So they're 2 stands firing, so they get 2 dice, but they also get another dice for being in impeccable order at the moment. So there are no disruption markers on them, and they're in good order. So they need 5s to hit and 3 dice. And they get 2 hits. Now, the French can save 1 of those. I think this is the first time this has happened. So they just got to roll above their discipline, which I think is 4. I'll check that in a moment, but let's just roll a dice. Yeah, it's 4, so I'll just check that. Yeah, it was 4+, so the French end up with 1 disruption marker. And now it's the part of the turn again. Okay, this French brigade on the left here isn't going to do very much. It has to spend 5 order card to do it though. All they're going to do is move this, manoeuvre this brigade here so that it wheels to face those Russian infantry in line, but the other line of dragoons on the other side of the stream aren't going to do anything because they can't charge those cuirassiers anyway because they're in difficult ground. Right, so I'm going to use the Russians' final card to rally. So this is the first time we've used the rally aspect of the cards in this game. So it applies to 1 brigade. So I'm going to do that on the centre brigade because the infantry regiment is disordered at the moment with 4 disruption markers, so that could do with rallying. But the battery in the redoubt also has 1 disruption marker on it, so at least I can make some attempt to get rid of that as well. So we'll start with the battery, and all I'm going to do for that is to roll a dice, and if I roll a 6 then I can get rid of the disruption marker. And I do, a 6, brilliant. Okay, so that's going to go. Now with the infantry regiment, we're going to do the whole lot, other than you have to do this in order. So the first thing you do is you could remove a disruption marker if you do a full withdrawal move, but I don't want to do that. So the next thing is to rally on the colours, which is to roll a dice for each disruption marker they have. So 4 dice, and any 6s gets rid of 1 disruption marker. Right, there's 6 there, so we can get rid of 1 disruption marker. That's a good start. Now, the next thing you can do is to take casualties in order to remove 2 disruption markers. But in the case of this unit, they've got the stoic quality, so if I remove 1 stand, I can remove 3 disruption markers, which is all that remains. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to take a stand off as casualties. And then finally, I'm going to roll a dice, and as long as they're not within 5 paces of an enemy unit, they can try and reorder themselves, and they're not. So they've got a discipline of 4+, so if I roll 4 or higher, I can put them back into good order. No, so they remain in disorder. Even though they haven't got any disruption markers on them now, they still remain in disorder. And now the final French card to play, and all I'm going to do with that is play it on this brigade on the left here. Do nothing with the dragoons in the distance there, but I'm just going to move this line a little bit closer to this infantry here. They're just outside of 12 inches, so I wouldn't be able to charge them, but I want to get them closer so that I can charge them in a future turn. Right, there we go then, so a little bit nearer, and we're now into the end phase of turn 3, so there's a few more things going to happen in this end phase, so I'll just run through that on camera. Right, then I'll just show you an overview of the battlefield rather than the dice rolls for this. It's probably more interesting to watch, and I'll call out the results of the die rolls. So, at the end of turn 3, the first thing you do is check for reserves arriving, and this is the beginning of when the French cuirassiers might come on the table. So they're going to appear on the table with a roll of 4+, and I roll a 1, so they're not going to appear this turn. Then one of the French commander's stands was at risk, so each time he was put at risk you have to roll a d6, and if you roll a 1 then he has to move up to 20 inches away from the enemy. It could be just 1 inch, but he has to make a movement so that he's further away from the enemy than he was at the beginning, and I roll a 5, so he's fine. Then there's nothing else to do. There are no broken units, and there are no units with disruption markers equal to their stands. No battlefield objectives have been reached yet. So it's on to how goes the day, so I might as well show you that. So, 2 dice for each side. French are blue, French add 1, Russians add 2. 4 ones, can you believe it? So the Russians will have 4 points and the French 3, so the Russians have the initiative for the next turn again. Okay, turn 4 then, and not so many cards dealt as in previous rounds. Russians have got 5 cards because they've lost their Divisional Commander now, so they lose a card for that. And the French have got 4 cards because one of their commanders was at risk during the previous turn, so he doesn't get dealt a card, or a card isn't, he doesn't qualify for the card allowance for the army. So because I have access to both hands, as it were, I'm playing this solo, I sort of know what's coming, but the Russians have the initiative, and I think it would be reasonable anyway to do this as a priority. But this brigade commander here, the English chap on the bridge, is going to order, he's going to use a 4 order card to order this line regiment and this line regiment, both of which are over 10 paces away, so they require 4 orders in total. Definitely get these guys into square formation, which they can, even though they're disordered, they can take orders and so on. It's just they'll be in disorder in square rather than in disorder in column of attack. These guys here are going to just advance towards the enemy gun and try and charge it when they get within distance, but they've got to cross a couple of obstacles and get across difficult terrain. All of this walled area I'm counting as difficult terrain, not just the terrain pieces in them. So we're going to do that. So I'll do that off camera. Right, so there we are. There's the with 5 stands. It's a bit difficult to represent a square, but that's the Russian musketeers now in square formation, and it's the French play, and they are going to play this card for this special event, which is Fierce Cavalry Charge. A single cavalry regiment is given a charge order. The required discipline test is automatically passed, and in a following melee it gains +2 bonus dice. Other melee modifiers still apply. This special event may be used for a cavalry regiment to charge infantry in square formation. So even though they're in disorder, the square, the cavalry normally still wouldn't be allowed to charge them, but in this circumstance they can. So they pass their discipline test, but the Russians have to pass the discipline test to see whether or not they are disrupted. So I think I'll do this on camera. So their discipline level, I think, was 4+ if I remember. 4+, yeah. So let's roll 4 or above. And they rolled a 5, yeah, we get that. So they're fine. So then the cavalry adds the maximum. Oh no, hang on, no it doesn't. Yeah, so they have to roll. They can move 6 inches, but they now have to roll to see how much further than 6 inches they actually can go. 4, so they're gonna do that easily and reach the square. So I'll just move them. Right, so there they are in contact. I did that roll slightly wrong, though it didn't make any difference. Should have rolled 2d6 because they're a cavalry unit and taken the higher of the 2, but the roll of 4 was sufficient to get them into contact. So now we resolve a melee. Okay, so the defenders roll their dice first. So they start off with 5 dice because there are 5 stands. They are infantry in square versus cavalry. If the defender is infantry in square formation when fighting cavalry, add 2 extra dice. And that's it. So now they're fighting with bayonets. So they're rolling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dice, and they're hitting on 4s. Blimey, all but 1. So they've got 6 hits. It's not good for the French. Maybe that special event card will help them. So the French have 4 stands. They're superior quality because they're professional, and the Russians are only trained. Now I think they have a shock impact, the Dragoons. Yeah, they have a shock impact of 2, which means they had another 2 dice. And then that dice here. They're fighting infantry in disorder. So they gain 2 dice for that. And they get an extra 2 dice for the special event. So they will be rolling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 dice. And they will be fighting with sabres, hitting on 3+. This could be fairly equal. Oh, look at those 1s and 2s. Gosh. So they've lost the melee. Russians held them off. But only by 1, only by a difference of 1. Anyway, it's still a win for the Russians. So I'll just sort all that out off camera. Right, there we are. So after all that, both units are now disordered. The Russians were previously anyway, so no change for them in that respect. Both sides have got a disruption marker for fighting the melee, but the Dragoons get an extra one for the difference in dice that hit. So there was 1 difference, so they get an extra 1, and they are in disorder. As I say, they were obliged to make a full withdrawal move plus d6 paces. So a full in line cavalry moves 6 inches normally, so full withdrawal would be 3 inches, and then they rolled 2 on a d6, so they pulled back 5 inches. So that's how that has now ended up. But the card that I played it for a special event, and I can, if I get 6, then we can play another French card. No, it's only a 3. So it's back to the Russians. Right, the Russians are going to play this card here for the special event, which is similar to the same as the one that the French played earlier. Commander wounded, so on a 5+, the French commander will be taken off the table and they'll gain victory points for it. No, so that didn't work. But if I roll 5 or higher, I can play another card. Yes, so I get to play another card at least. Okay, so I'm going to have another go at persuading those Russian cuirassiers to charge the Dragoons, and at the same time I'm playing a card that's got again it's out of focus, you can't see, but it's got 3 orders on it, so the Brigade Commander is also going to order the Grenadiers to move further forward as well. So I'll just show you, the cuirassiers have got to pass a discipline test in order to do that of 3+, and they fail again. 2, God, they don't want to come out of that difficult terrain. So again, they pick up a disruption marker, and nothing happens in that respect, but the Grenadiers can move forward a little bit. Okay, the French play a card now, and they're going to have to get this brigade moving over here. So, but I'm going to play a card with 6 orders on it. 3 of them are going to be taken up ordering. The infantry can't charge cavalry, so basically I'm going to order these 2 regiments in column here to fire at these cavalry. So there'll only be the front 2 stands firing, but 4 stands in total might have some effect. But the other line infantry are just going to advance over the bridge. So that will be possibly, that's over 10 inches, so that will be 2, 3, 4 orders. So that leaves me with another 2 orders, which will allow me to order the artillery there to fire at these Russian infantry are getting a bit close now. See if they can damage them. So let's start with. I'll move the infantry off camera, and then we'll start with the 2 units firing at the cavalry there. There we are. Then the infantry on the left are moving over the bridge. Now the other 2 columns are going to fire their muskets at those hussars. So the first column gets 2 dice for the front 2 stands, and they're not impeccable because they have a disruption marker, and they're hitting on 5s. They get no hits. The second one is impeccable though, so it gets 3 dice hitting on 5s. It gets 1 hit, and the hussars can try to save 1 hit by exceeding their discipline level, which is 3. So 3 or higher and they don't get any hits. And they score a 4. Yeah, so the musketry fire was no good whatsoever. So let's now see what happens with the how it's firing. It's allowed to fire canister, and I think it must be within canister range. Just check that. So the canister range for a big 20 pounder is 15 inches, so that's well within 15 inches. In these rules, going through crop fields does obscure the target, so they will get an obscured modifier for that. So again, let's work all that out. So it's going to be 2 dice now because it's canister. They're impeccable because they haven't got any disruption markers on them. The target is obscured, so you lose 1 dice as a result of that. And that's it. That's it. So only 2 dice, but they will be hitting with canister. Where are we? 4 plus. See if they can do better than the infantry. Yes, 2 hits. So that's 2 disruption markers onto the infantry there. Right, now the Russians are going to play 4 orders on this card here. They're actually only going to need 3 of them. This Hussar regiment is just outside of 10 inches, so it's going to take 2 orders to get them just to make a withdrawal move, which is half their distance. And cavalry, light cavalry in line, can move 8 inches, so they can pull back 4 inches. And then musketry range is 10 inches. So these guys here are just outside of 10 inches, but these chaps here are within just within 10 inches of that battalion coming over the bridge. So they're going to fire at the French as they come over the bridge. Okay, so they're 3 stands, so they get 3 dice for that, and they're impeccable at the moment. So they get an extra dice, and being Jaegers rather than musketeers, they're hitting on 4s rather than 5s. 1 hit, and they're firing at the veteran line infantry, who have a discipline of 3. So they can shake that hit off if they pass their discipline. Do it on the tray. and they get a 3, so they're okay. Okay, now with the French turn, one Dragoon regiment is just waiting for the Russian cuirassiers to pluck up the courage to leave the difficult ground. So all I'm going to do with the other brigade is play a rally card. So the Dragoons are professional, so I'm going to play this rally card here, which will give... Do you know what? I think I forgot... Or did I? Yeah, I think I forgot to give the French a victory point for when the Russians rallied off. I can't remember now, it's too long ago, so we'll skip that. But this will give the Russians one victory point to rally the Dragoons. Yeah, I did forget to do that, because luckily I've been keeping a note of not only of the score but the reasons why the victory points were scored, and I hadn't given the French any victories for the enemy rallying, so I've given the French a victory point, and I've made sure I put this one down for the Russians now. Okay, so I've withdrawn a full withdrawal move, so that allows me to take one of the 2 disruption markers off the Dragoons automatically, and now I can attempt to rally on the colours. So if I get a 6, I can take off the other disruption marker. No, I don't. Now I could take off a stand, and that would allow me to take off 2 disruption markers, but I've only got 1, so it's not worth it. But I will now try to order the ranks, so get them back into good order, because they're in disorder at the moment. So I need to pass the discipline test, so they're professional, and I need to get 3 or more. I get a 6, so I can put them back in good order. Right then, with the final Russian card, I'm going to make another attempt to get those cuirassiers to charge the Dragoons, and at the same time give another order to the Grenadiers in that brigade to continue moving forward. So they're going to reach the tree line with their next move. But anyway, can't be that difficult, surely. 3+. I've had so many attempts. They're professional, so they need 3+ in order to charge. And they fail again, so they get another disruption marker. Unbelievable, useless bunch. Okay, so the final French card to play then, they're going to play 3 orders. So 1 order is going to be given to that regiment in the middle there just to advance, and the other is going to require 2 orders to order the artillery to once again fire at that advancing Russian infantry. So I'll move the infantry off table, and then we'll show you the dice rolls for the artillery. Okay, so 1 stand of artillery firing canister will get 2 dice, and because they're impeccable, they get an additional dice. And firing canister requires 4+ to hit, and they get 1 hit. And with artillery fire, there is no way of saving that, so that unit there will get a 3rd disruption marker. Okay, so it's now the end phase of turn 4. First thing to do is to check for reserves coming on, so French are going to roll needing 4+ to get the cuirassiers on the table, and they fail again, and there are no broken units to take off, no units with disruption equal to the number of stands, although those Russian cuirassiers are pretty close to it now, having constantly failed their discipline tests. So the only thing to do is roll for how goes the day. Neither side have met any of their battlefield objective goals yet, so blue for France, yellow and green for Russians had 2, France had 1. So 7 goes up to 8. And 5 goes up to 7. So the French have just pipped it this time. They will get the initiative, but only by 1, so no victory points won or anything like that. Okay, so French have the initiative, and these are their 5 cards. Both sides now have 5 cards dealt to them. There weren't any commanders at risk, so the French get their full complement, and the Russians have lost their divisional commander, so they lose a card for that, so they're down from 6 to 5. And now the French have the initiative, so things might be beginning to turn their way now. And also, I did shuffle these cards, but the French have a duplicate, and the Russians have a duplicate as well. And I'm dealing them alternately, one to one side and another, so it's not as though they're next to one another in the pack even. It's just, I think it's just pure chance. But anyway, very useful. The French can go first, and they've got a very useful special event there that they're going to play. Ride them down. A single heavy cavalry unit may charge an enemy infantry unit in disorder, even if they are infantry in square formation. In the following melee, the cavalry to hit rolls are increased to 2. So I'm obviously going to attempt to charge that square that's in disorder with my dragoons, but it doesn't say that they don't have to. They do it automatically, so they're going to have to pass the discipline test first of all in order to be able to charge. So the French dragoons have a discipline of 3, and they just get it. That was lucky. So they are going to charge their full distance of 6 inches for heavy cavalry in line, plus the highest of 2d6 in inches. 5, so they can charge 11 inches. So I'll just measure that, but I'm sure they can make contact. Yeah, they easily do that. It's about 8 or 9 inches. Now, the Russians, before I do anything else, before I even move the French, I should have rolled for the Russian discipline. Again, I forgot what it was, but I think it was 4. Yeah, discipline of 4. So if they fail this, they automatically get another disruption marker. And they pass 5, so they're okay. Okay, so the defenders roll their dice first, so they get 5 dice for the 5 stands in their unit. And then add modifiers and so on. So they're in disorder, so they lose 2 dice. They go down to 3. They're in square versus cavalry, so they go back up to 5. And that's it. And they're fighting with bayonets and hitting on 4s. And they get 3 hits. Right, now it's up to the French to reply. So they have 4 stands, so they get 4 dice for that. The cavalry's hit rolls are increased to 2+, so they're hitting on 2, so they're not getting extra dice for this special event, but they are hitting on 2. So the modifiers are superior quality because they're professional and the Russians are trained. 2 shock impact because they're heavy cavalry with shock impact 2. 2 for cavalry versus infantry in disorder. And that's it. So they're rolling 4, 9 dice, hitting on 2s. So this, got to win this one, surely. So any ones come off, and the rest is hits. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hits. So let's just work all that out. Okay, that's it. That's the outcome resolved. So both sides are now disordered and gain 1 disruption marker for fighting in a melee. The losing square, if it's a square, it only withdraws 1 inch, so it's moved back 1 inch, and it's also gained 4 extra disruption markers for the difference in the number of dice that the French won the melee by. And because that was more than 3, there's a possibility that the French can capture the Russian regiment's colours. So I think it's on a roll of 6. Check that. Yeah, on a roll of 6. Oh, they've gained a victory point, by the way, for winning the melee, but on a roll of 6 they capture the colours and win another victory point. And it's a 1, no, so they just get the 1 victory point. Okay, so before I forget, that was a special event, so there's a possibility the French can play another card, and in this case they need to roll 4 or above. And they rolled a 5. So what they're going to do, that was the card that they just played. They've got a duplicate card, same thing, so they're going to play the same special event again. Right, so first of all they need to pass discipline test in order to be able to charge, 3+. Oh no, they're not going to do it, they only get a 1. So they don't charge, but again they're going to roll 4+ and they can play another card. Oh, they do get a disruption marker for failing to charge though. I'll put that on in a moment. So 4+. No, it's a 1, so that's the end of the French turn. Okay, first card the Russians are going to play then is for a special event. It's this one here. Artillery battery, low on ammunition. 1 enemy artillery battery is now low on powder and shot and must restrict its rate of fire. The chosen battery must re-roll any hits when it bombards until the end of the game. So in other words, any hit's going to have to be re-rolled from now on in for that howitzer. And that is a 4+, so can the Russians play another card? No, they can't, so they rolled a 3. Okay, I'm looking at this card in the French hand now to play again for the special event. It's well drilled. Up to 3 units may take a manoeuvre order and then immediately afterwards take a march order, or they may march and then manoeuvre. And it can be used on anything but militia, so I'm going to use that on the 3 infantry regiments in the brigade on the right. Okay, so that's how I've interpreted that special event. So they've all kind of moved forward and then pivoted. So 2 of them are now threatening, well, they're well within charge range of the Jaegers, and they can't charge the cavalry, but they're in a good position. Might change their formation. And on that subject, that special event was a 3+. So if they roll 3 or more, they can play another card, and they do. They rolled a 6. I'm just going to make up my mind what I want to do. Okay, just lost a little bit of footage there. So I did make up my mind what I wanted to do, which was to play this card here on the same unit for the orders, and I can get away with that. It's not consecutive order because the previous card was a special event that I played on them, and the 6 orders allowed me to use 2 on each of these 3 units. The first 2 I spent on changing the formation of that unit to a square, and then these other 2 were ordered to charge the Jaegers, which they did, successfully passed their discipline tests. The Jaegers failed 1 of their discipline tests, so they've got a disruption marker. And now I'm going to move the 2 units in, you move all the charges in, and then you resolve it as one mass melee, not as separate melees. So I'm going to do that now. Right, there we are. So we're going to resolve one mass melee now. So I'm assuming that you only apply modifiers once. So there are 2 column of attacks there going in, but I think you only get 1 modifier for attacking in column. That's the way I'm going to interpret it anyway. So the Jaegers, the Russian Jaegers roll their dice first of all, the defenders roll their dice first of all. So they have 3 stands. Now they're superior quality, no they're not, they're trained. So they're less better, they're less lower quality than one of those, but equal to another, so they don't get superior quality. They're not in disorder or anything like that. So they don't get any kind of buffs or any minuses. It's just 3 dice fighting with the bayonet, and they actually have to hit on 5s, I believe. So they're better at firing than the musketeers, but worse in melee. Yeah, 5s. So 3 dice hitting on 5s. One hit, something anyway. And then this is going to hurt. There are 12 stands altogether. And one of the units is, well, they're both in column of attack. So as I say, I'm only going to add 2 for that rather than 4. But one of them is superior quality, so we'll give them 1 extra dice for that. And that's it. And now, this is interesting, because the veterans hit on 3s and the line on 4s. Right, so I'm going to rethink this. I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to say there are 6 stands of line, and I am going to give them 2 for column of attack, and nothing else. So there are going to be 8 blue dice hitting on 4s, and then there are 6 in the veteran, and they are also in column of attack, so they get another 2 dice for that, but they also get 1 for being superior quality. So there are 9, there are going to be 9, and find the 9th dice. There we go. So they're going to be 8 hitting on 4 in blue, 9 hitting on 3 in yellow. Right, so we can take off 1 to 3s of the blues. Blimey, it's only rubbish, and 2s and 2s and 1s. So look at the difference in quality there. So all together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hits. No, hang on, 1, 2, 3, 8 hits, and the Jaegers hit once. Right, so that is a difference of 7. Let me just work this out. Right, there we go then. So the Jaegers have got about 8 or 9 disruption markers on them now, and they threw high on the D6, so they moved back 7 inches, The two French regiments are now disordered and each gained one disruption marker, so that one already had one, so it's now got two disruption markers. And because they won by more than three, they made an attempt to capture the colours, but failed. So that is the end of that melee now, and the end of the French turn. So it's now over to the Russians to play a card. Oh, and I did remember, by the way, to give the French a victory point for winning a melee. So that's added to their tally of victory points now. Okay, you might notice a change in lighting because it's the next day on from the last bit of footage I did. Yeah, looking at this situation over here now, it's the Russian turn to play a card, and I mean, you would have spotted that I've played the Russian side very badly over here for a number of reasons. One of the things that I haven't really been using in the rules is skirmishers. Now the skirmisher rule is actually quite interesting. It's quite novel as far as I can tell. If a unit has the skirmisher's ability, and these French line do, and the Jaegers certainly do, what you do is you simply put one of the stands forward of the main formation just to demonstrate that the skirmishers have been deployed. You have to give an order for that to happen. And then, instead of firing according to the number of stands, they fire a number of dice according to a statistic in the rule book. So in the case of the Jaegers, for instance, they would fire 2 dice instead of 3. But they have a 360-degree arc of fire and a range of 20 paces for the muskets rather than 10. So it's representing skirmishers kind of milling around outside of the, and away from the main body of the unit. And of course that's what I should have been doing with these Jaegers. They would have been firing on the French much sooner, with almost as much effect. So basically, I've played it very wrong, very badly as a general, and and as a demonstrator of these rules to you. So it's probably a bit late in the game now for me to actually deploy skirmishers, because they would move back in once the unit got into contact with the enemy. And the other thing I've been doing badly, of course, is using these hussars. Now, one of the main functions of the hussars, or light cavalry, is they have this harass ability, and that would compel the enemy to reintegrate their skirmishers into the unit, to withdraw their skirmishers. So that whole skirmisher element of the game, I haven't been showing you, and I haven't been playing, and it probably would have saved this situation over the Russian side. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get on with the game. So the Russians, first of all, are going to play this card for its special event, which is Steady Lads. A single infantry or cavalry unit can immediately reduce its disruption by 3 points as they find some extra grit and courage. So I'm going to take off 3 disruption markers from that Jaeger unit there. So they're now down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they've still got double their number of stands, but we'll probably be able to do something about that before the end of the game. And that special event was a 4, which means if I roll 4 or above on a dice, so let's try and do it in camera here. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that, but it is a 4. It's not cocked. That's the reason why you should always roll into a dice tray anyway. But so they can play another card, So they're not going to rally just yet. They are going to do orders. So I've got a card with 4 orders here, and I'm going to order different things. These guys here and these chaps here are both going to fire into that unit. This chap here is going to manoeuvre, so it's going to swivel 90 degrees, so it's facing the rear. And these chaps here are just going to move forward a few inches so they're within carbine range and they can fire their carbines eventually. Oh, sorry, I've zoomed in so you're not seeing any of that. Yeah, these guys here and these guys here are going to fire at that line unit. These chaps are going to swivel around and these chaps are going to move forward and later in the game be able to fire their carbines into that square. Okay, we'll start with the least effective, probably, the Jaegers in disorder there. So they would get 3 dice, but they're in disorder, so they lose 2 of them. So they're only rolling 1 dice, needing 4s to hit because they're Jaegers, firing onto that unit there. They get a 1. And then there are 3 stanza Jaegers here, and they get an additional dice because they're impeccable at the moment. They're in good order and don't have any disruption markers, so 4 dice needing 4s to hit. And they all hit, excellent. So the French can save 1 of those if they roll over their discipline, which is 4, and they do. So that's another 3 disruption markers to add to the 2 that they've got already. Now the French have somewhat shot their bolt because they've only got 1 card left now, but they did manage to quite effectively use a lot of their special events. So the final card, we're going to rally, so I've got a rally, professional and elite there, so we're going to rally this brigade here, but it's only that Dragoon regiment that needs to rally. So the first thing they're going to do is get rid of one of their disruption markers by withdrawing a full withdrawal move. Okay, there we are. So they pull back 3 inches, which is half their heavy cavalry movement rate in line. And you can just about see they've taken off one of the 3 disruption markers, so they're now left with 2. So the next thing you can do is rally on the colours, which is roll a dice for each disruption marker they have, and if you get a 6 you can remove one of them. No joy there. And then I could take casualties and remove the final 2 disruption markers that way, but I think that's too drastic to do. Don't think that's necessary. So I can now try and order the ranks because they have less disruption markers than they have stands. So to do that I just need to pass a discipline test to get them back into good order. Oh, hang on, they must be within 5 paces of the enemy, which is 5 inches. Oh, I think I'm going to say that they are, because they would have, the square would have been 1 inch away from them, having withdrawn itself, and they only pulled back 3 inches. So they can't reorder at the moment, which is a bit of a shame. But anyway, at least I got rid of 1 of the disruption markers. Okay, so the Russians have still got 2 cards to play. First one they're going to play on the centre brigade, and it's too late now to really throw skirmishers out with this line regiment here that's attacking well not attacking but approaching the French howitzer. wouldn't have been a lot of use in this case anyway, because they are allowed to put skirmishers out, but their skirmisher value is only 1, and the maximum of dice you can roll against artillery is 1 as well. So they would have been just potting away at the artillery. It's much better to advance and engage them, I think, but they're too far away to charge at the moment because they're moving through difficult terrain, so they have to roll d6, basically move that number of inches, and it's 6 inches to the wall, which I think is what they have to do, is charge up to the wall, and then the artillery get the benefit of the wall as defence in a melee. So they're basically just going to roll the dice and see how far they can advance. Six inches, right, so they haven't quite made it to the wall, it was just a bit over 6 inches, but I'm going to move them right up close to the artillery. Right, there we are, so they're very close to the artillery now. And then the other thing that the brigade is going to do, that used up 2 orders, and they're playing a 4 order card. So the other 2 orders are going to be used to order the artillery there to also fire at the howitzer. Now they can do that even though there's intervening friendly troops, because they've got this lob shot characteristic which allows them to do that. So again, from previous turns we know that it's only 1 dice requiring 5s to hit. Oh, and they get 5. Yeah, that's good news. So there's no saving throw with artillery fire, so that puts a disruption marker onto the French artillery. Right, then finally, with the last Russian card, I'm going to rally this brigade here, but effectively that's only that Jaeger unit there. So this will give 1 victory point to the French to play this, and then the first thing I'm going to do is to withdraw them, their withdrawal movement, and take off 1 of the disruption markers. Right, there we are, so they're now down to 5 disruption markers. So I'm next going to rally on the colours, even though they don't have any. Oh, they probably do, but cavalry and artillery don't. So 5 dice, needing 6s. Yeah, 1 6, so 1 more can come off. Right, so they're now down to 4 disruption markers, but this is the end of the turn now, so if they're left there like that, they would be broken and removed from the table. So they have to take a standoff as a casualty now in order to remove further disruption markers. Normally it would be 2, but the Russian Jaegers have the stoic feature, so they can take 3 off. So they're now down to 1 disruption marker, so they're safe again, even though they've lost a stand. So now they can attempt to reorder, and their, let's see, their discipline is trained, so on a 4+, they can put themselves back into order. No, they failed to do that, so they're still disordered. Okay, now we're into the end phase, and looking around the battlefield, there's a couple of things I've noticed that are relevant, but before I do any of that, we have to roll to see if the reserve cuirassiers come onto the table. So they come on with a 4+. They get 5, yep, so they're coming onto the table. Right, so there they are. Might be too late for them to have much impact on the game, but the significance now is that there's another French command stand on the table, so it will generate another action card. And what I've done is I've put them in march, column of march, so they're kind of vulnerable, you know, if they get closer to the enemy. But my plan is to sort of race them up the road, and then that would put that commander at risk if he doesn't move back, meaning that the Russians would lose a card, and on the subject of which you will notice that this Russian commander here is now within 10 paces of the enemy, even though there's intervening friendly unit, doesn't matter. So he is technically at risk now in this turn, and in fact you do it for each enemy unit within 10 inches, so that's 2 enemy units and the other one is not, so he's at risk twice effectively. So you have to roll to see if he's obliged to retire. 2 dice, and if he gets 1, he's obliged to move away from the enemy. No, 2 twos, so he's fine from that respect, but it will mean that he doesn't generate a card next turn. Okay, now another thing that I hadn't spotted until now is that this Russian line battalion here is only composed of 5 stands now, because they took one off to reduce their disruption markers, but they actually have 6 disruption markers, so they have to come off the table. It would have been a choice between saving them or saving that Jaeger unit, so probably, I don't know, maybe I should have saved them, but I would have had to have sacrificed one of those 2 units, but I overlooked them anyway. I thought they were on equal to. So they are a trained unit, so basically roll a d6 and I've rolled a 2, so that will give 3 victory points to the French. Yeah, that rally card would have been much better spent on the centre brigade trying to save that square, because the other 2 units in that brigade, this line regiment and the artillery, all have disruption markers on them, so I could have tried to take some of those off, but never mind, it's the nature of wargaming. But you will notice here there is a French stand, 1 stand of artillery that has 1 disruption marker on it, so in the end phase, if that occurs, it gives 1 victory point to the enemy, so the Russians gain a victory point for that. And now we're on to how goes the day. So both sides roll 2 dice, French in blue. French had 1 because of their tactical modifiers, the Russians had 2. So the Russians have got 8 plus 2 is 10. French have got 7 plus 1 is 8. So the Russians have the advantage and have the initiative in the next turn. Right, turn 6 then, and the Russians are only dealt 4 cards in this turn, because they've lost both their divisional command stand and one of their brigade command stands is at risk, so they've got 2 stands plus the 2 you get automatically, whereas the French are now back to 6 cards, or at 6 cards for the first time in the game. But the Russians have the initiative, so they're going to go first. So first thing I'm going to do is activate the centre brigade, including this Russian regiment that's advancing towards the gun that you can see there. This regiment is now over 20 paces away from the brigade commander, because she measured to the command stand, so the stand with the flag, so it's just over 20, it's about 22, so that's going to require 3 orders on them. So he needs to, basically, if he's going to order the artillery and them. That's going to take 5 orders, so that's what I'm playing, a 5 order card. And the first thing he's going to do is order, again, this is a bit cheesy I suppose, but he's going to get the artillery to fire on this battery before the attack goes in. So we know that that is single dice requiring 5 to hit. No, they fail. And then in order for the artillery, for the infantry to attack, to charge, they need to pass a discipline test, which is 4+, and they fail, so they get a disruption marker, and they can volley fire instead. I'll just put a disruption marker on them before I forget. I think I managed to, I don't know, it's probably speaking too soon. I'll tell when I review the footage, but I don't think I made too many mistakes so far. Right, or omissions. Okay, so they have a fire factor of 5+, and they get 1 hit, which the French can save if they pass the discipline test, which is 4+. No, they fail. So the French artillery, they weren't engaged in an attack, but they have now got 2 disruption markers, and they've only got a single stand there, so they're going to have to do something about that before the end of the turn. And I should have said as well, just as matter of part of the rules of the game, that I'd got to the bottom of the action card packs, so I had to reshuffle them, and when you do that, each time you do that, you remove D6 cards, and I only rolled a 2, so I just took 2 random cards out of the pack before I dealt them out. Okay, it's now the French turn, so they are going to play a special event, sort of way out of focus, sorry. But they're going to play it on that Russian battery. It's the same card that the Russians played on them, which is low on ammunition. So from now on, that battery is low on ammunition for the rest of the game, which means it needs to re-roll any hits. So I've just got to remember that for both sides. Any hit from artillery from both sides now has to re-roll. Okay, so that was, as I say, special event, so 4+, and I can roll another card. No, so that's the end of the French turn. Back to the Russians. Right, now the Russians really have to take advantage of this opportunity here to charge this unit in the rear before the opportunity is lost. So I'm going to play a 4 order card on this brigade over here. It's got 4 units in it, but one of the Jaeger units is now just over 10 paces away from the commander, so that would cost me 5 orders to order all the 4 units. So I'm only going to order these 3. So the first thing I'm going to do is these guys are going to unload their carbines. They get 1 shot during the game, so they're just going to fire their carbines into those infantry in square. So they are carbines needing 5+. Okay, so there's two stands, gives you 2 dice. They're impeccable as well, meaning they get a 3rd dice, and that's about it. They're within range, 5 paces for carbines, needing 5+. All missed. Oh well, never mind. Okay, then next thing we're going to do is the Jaegers are going to fire their muskets into those infantry before the other hussars charge into them. So 3 stands, they're impeccable as well, and they require because they're Jaegers, they hit on 4+. And they get 2 hits. So the French got a discipline of 4, I believe. Yep, so they can save 1 hit if they get over 4. And they don't. So that now, they are disordered already, but they would be disordered by the fact that they have now got more disruption markers on them than they have stands. Okay, I don't know if you can see that, but they've now got 7 disruption markers there now. So next, the final order is for the Hussars to charge into the French there, and to do that they need to pass a discipline test, but they are seasoned, which means they only need 3+, and they get 3. So then the French have to pass a discipline test, or they get another disruption marker, and they do. They get a 6. So we just move the French in to contact now, and we fight a melee. So the defenders fight first. So the defenders have 6 stands. Yeah, defenders have 6 stands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They are definitely not superior quality. They're in disorder, so they lose 2 of their dice. So they're down to 4. They're in... Oh, they're not in march column, they're in attack column. Right, that's all the modifiers. So they are fighting with bayonets. So they need 4+ to hit. Do they? I might have that one. 4+, yeah. 4 dice needing 4s. I haven't done badly. They've got 3 there. So 3 hits. Now the Russians are attacking from the rear, so they have 2 dice for their 2 stands. Their superior quality gives them another dice. Oh, hang on. Yep, superior quality. They don't have any shock impact, being Hussars. They get 2 dice for cavalry versus infantry in disorder, but they get 4 dice for attacking from the rear. And that's all the extra dice they're going to get. And they are fighting with sabres requiring 3+ to hit. Right, so take out any 1s and 2s. And they have got 6 hits against the French 3, which means they get an excess of 3. So we'll just work all that out. Okay, so here's how I've left the situation. So the Russian Hussars basically get 1 disruption marker for having 14 melee, and they also become disordered. The French were already disordered, but they gain 1 disruption marker for that. They have to make a withdrawal move, which I'm assuming is away from the attacking unit. Makes sense. So they only rolled 2. They make a withdrawal move, which is 3 inches, plus they rolled 2 on the d6, 5 inches. Now, there's nothing in the rules to say that when you charge into melee, you conform with the opponent's ranks. So I didn't swivel the Hussars around like that. So then, is the withdrawal move made in a forward direction for the retreating unit or away from the enemy. I think it would probably be kind of away from the enemy, so kind of obliquely, as it were, because they hadn't conformed their ranks, which would have taken them through, 5 inches would have taken them through this enemy unit here, friendly unit here. And if that happens, you stop when you reach the enemy unit, and both units get an extra disruption marker. But that would have left the French unit almost still in contact with the Hussars. So what I've done is kind of squeeze them through that gap there between the wall and the friendly unit. So it's a bit of a compromise. The rules aren't clear on exactly what you're supposed to do. The French were defeated by 3 disruption markers difference, so there was an attempt to capture their colours which failed, and yeah, I think that's everything. So basically it's a little bit complicated to keep tidy there, but I think that's a sort of reasonable settlement of how the melee would have ended. So now it's back to the French to play another card. And before I forget to say, it did give the Russians an additional victory point, and I am keeping tally. I'm just forgetting to state on the video. Right, so the French are going to play a rally card, so this will immediately give 1 victory point to the Russians. But effectively they're going to play it on this brigade here, which consists of 3 line regiments over there, but also the artillery here, and probably the line infantry that have been hammered are probably going to end up having to take casualties to remove a lot of those markers. But I'm more concerned to get these 2 markers off of the artillery and reorder them. So basically they can't make a withdrawal move because they're artillery. That means they've abandoned the guns, so they can't get a disruption marker off that way. So then they attempt to rally around the colours. So they've got 2 disruption markers, so d6, 6 on a d6. No, so they don't get rid of either of them that way. They can't afford to take a standoff because it's only a single stand, and they can't attempt to reorder because they're in disorder at the moment, because they have more disruption markers than they have stands, so total lack of success there. Now we'll do the seasoned veteran line infantry first then, who have 2 disruption markers, so they're not going to withdraw. They will attempt to rally around the colours, and they fail that way as well. They don't want to sacrifice a stand, but they do have more stands than disruption markers, which means if they roll on their season, so if they roll 3+, they can reorder themselves. Oh, this hasn't gone well. Right, okay, so finally the sort of shattered guys here, how do they withdraw? They can't do that, so let's just count how many disruption markers they've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So if they were broken with 13 at the end of the in the end phase, that would qualify as a massacre. So it's probably best to get rid of a few of those anyway, and not to give the Russians victory points for a massacre. So I can roll 12 dice
try and get rid of control disruption markers.
Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12. So needing 6s. And I've got 1, 2, 3. So we move 3 disruption markers that way. Yeah, so then I've taken casualties. So I've taken 3 stands off. So they're down to a 3-stand unit now. But that's taken 6 disruption markers off, so they're now down to 3 disruption markers. So, they still have equal to the number of stands. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to take another stand off. So they're down to 2 stands, and they're down to 1 disruption marker. So now they can attempt to reorder. 4, they get it, they got the discipline vessel, so they are now back, believe it or not, in good order and in much diminished. Okay, so the Russians are going to play a card with 4 orders on it, even though they're only ordering 2 units in the brigade. Yeah, you know what? That is something that I've not spotted before, but the Russian commander there is probably, I don't know, I have to measure that in a minute, but he's probably within 10 paces of those Dragoons, so he shouldn't have generated an action card, but never mind. Okay, so he's going to order those cuirassiers once again to try and charge the Dragoons, and the Grenadiers are just going to move up to the edge of the wood there, the difficult terrain wood. So, first of all, can the Russian cuirassiers finally pass their discipline test? They only need to get 3 or more. 1! Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. They haven't done anything all the game. They're just sat there. They're meant to be kind of elite cavalry. I don't know. Okay, there. So that's the situation. I've moved the commander. He was within 10 paces of the Dragoons, so I'm going to be easy on myself and just pretend that he was always where he is now. The cuirassiers now have 4 disruption markers. I think all of them acquired by failing to charge, and they don't carry carbines, so they haven't got the opportunity to fire their carbines instead, and even if they did have carbines, they'd be out of range of the Dragoons. And the Grenadiers have, because that wood is difficult ground, they've moved up to the difficult ground, but they have to stop there, and in the next turn, moving through it, they'll move at d6 inches rather than 4 inches that they can in line. So d6 inches, but up to a maximum of 4 through the difficult terrain. Right, the French are going to play a card for its special event, which is Vive l'Empereur. Only played on a French unit. A single French infantry or cavalry unit may charge. It automatically passes its discipline test, if only the Russians had one like this, and adds the maximum 6 paces to its move. Do not roll. In melee, the unit attacks as normal, but in melee to hit is increased to 2+ for this melee. So it's hitting on 2+ if it gets in. So it's actually, it's allowed to kind of echelon past this diminished French unit here, but it will go over a bit of difficult ground. So I'm interpreting this rule that it has to roll d6 inches moving over the difficult ground. It could normally move at 6 inches, so if it rolls 6, it can move 6. And then adds the 6-inch allowance to that, and it hopefully should get in. So let's just see what they roll in terms of movement first of all. 6 inches. There we go. So definitely going to be able to make contact there. Okay, so there they are, having made contact. So I'm assuming now, well, I'm pretty sure this is right, that because they're charging in, the Jaegers have to take a discipline test, otherwise they get another disruption marker. They passed that, they needed 4s, but they got 6. So the defenders fight first, so they have 2 stands. They're in disorder, so they lose 2 for that. And that's it. So I think they do get to roll 1 dice. I'm pretty sure. Just check that. No, they don't. I knew in the back of my mind that I'd read somewhere something like this, but it is possible for the defenders to roll no dice at all. So I'll just go through that again. But definitely, there's 2 dice, and they're in disorder, so they lose 2. So they're not rolling any dice. So it's over to the French now. So they are infantry in column. So they've got 6 stands. They are infantry in column of attack, gives them another 2. They are also the veteran infantry, so they're superior quality, gives them another 1. And that's it. So they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 dice. But because of that special event that they're rolling, they're hitting on 2s. So there's 1 that didn't hit, but the others. So they've got 8 hits there. Yeah, something I didn't allow for is the attackers are in disorder, so they would have lost 2 dice. So I'm going to assume that they would have been 2 of the hits. So they're down to 6 hits. And the French will also capture the colours if they roll a 6, because they scored more than 3 disruption points. Nearly 5. Right, there we are. So there the Jaegers moved back. They now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 disruption markers. They only have 1 card left rather. So they're going to pass their turn and go and allow the French to play another turn. The other card there is their battlefield objective, which was hold the line, and this is turn 6, and the objective will be met if there are no enemy units in their deployment zone at the end of turn 6. Now it's very close, so I think they're not going to meet that battlefield objective because they were deployed centre forward. So this flank here was 10 inches in, and you can see, hang on, was it? Yeah, because it was a thick sixth of the table's depth, and it's a 5-foot table, so that's 60 inches, which is 10 inches. So this unit is very close to getting to this deployment zone here, and the centre forward deployment zone is, because it's 6-foot wide table, is 24 inches across, which is there. So you can see that French unit is very close to either getting into the centre deployment zone or the left deployment zone. But anyway, so I've given the French a victory point for winning that melee, and given them another disruption marker for fighting in the melee. They're both still disordered, and we're back to playing another French turn now. Okay, so the French are going to play a special event card, which is at the gallop. Play on 2 cavalry regiments that are seasoned, professional or elite. The units are both given the at the quick order, but gain no disruption from this move. So at the quick order means you move 50% more of your movement allowance, but you gain a disruption marker. So in this case they won't. So I'm going to move these cuirassiers and the dragoons. Now the cuirassiers they're in column of march, and they're on a road, so they'll gain a movement bonus for that. So they're going to be able to get quite a long way up that road. They'll certainly put that commander at risk, but they'll be at slight jeopardy themselves because they'll be in march column approaching that artillery, but if I'm lucky I'll eventually be able to get them to reform in line and charge the guns on the other side of the bridge. See how that goes. And then these guys here, I'm just going to move sort of forward that way, try and get them to cross over the stream and get into the woods and mix with those Grenadiers. So I'll do all that movement and show you what outcome of that is. Okay, that's where the cavalry have ended up. Now, that was a special event, so there is the possibility of the French having another turn. In all fairness, the Russians would probably defer and pass anyway, but we'll just roll. It's only they only need to roll 2+ for this one, so let's see if they can do that. No, they've failed. 1+. I'm just going to think about this, whether the Russians want to play their last card now or hold it back a little bit longer. No, the Russians are going to hold their card back, which means that the French have another turn, and because that was a special event, the Brigade Commander can still give an order to those cuirassiers. Now, he wasn't allowed to move with the special event, so he's actually about 25 paces away from those cuirassiers. And note as well that the British officer standing in for a Russian commander is most definitely at risk now, so he's not going to qualify for a card either next turn. But the French Brigade Commander commanding the cuirassiers can use 3 orders there to order the cuirassiers over the bridge. They won't be able to change formation, but they'll be over the bridge and virtually up to the guns, and then they can change formation next turn. Right, there we are then. So that's the position reached by the cuirassiers. So they're virtually up to the gabions. If their luck holds out, they'll be able to change formation. Remember that the Russian artillery is low on ammunition now, so it has to re-roll any hits as well. So I'm hoping they'll be able to change formation and then charge the redoubt. And both players are now down to 1 action card, so the Russians cannot defer any longer. They have to play their final card. So they are going to play it, because we're now to the end phase now. The Russian cuirassiers, who should be taking an example from the French cuirassiers, now have 4 disruption markers and only 4 stands, so that would give a victory point to the French in the end phase. So they're going to play their card for a special event, which is Extraordinary Valour. A single professional or elite unit reduces its disruption by half, rounded down. It says these are excellent, brave and well-led troops. I'd question that with their performance so far, but anyway, I can take 2 of their disruption markers off. Okay, now what I decided to do is with the final card, I'm going to spend it's way too 4 orders. I don't know if you can see that, and give those cuirassiers another order to form into line. So all that does is it begins to fatigue them, so they get a single disruption marker. But I think that's a small price to pay for getting them out of jeopardy of being in column of march. Okay, so there we go. That looks quite tidy. I haven't put the disruption marker on them yet. I'm going to do that before I forget. And have to remember as well that the consecutive order constraint carries over from one turn to the next. So because they were the last French unit to receive orders, the last French brigade to receive orders, if I give that brigade an order next in the next turn, then they'll receive another disruption marker, so I have to remember that. Okay, we're now into the end phase of turn 6, and just to give you a tally on the current victory points held by each army, they are both on 11 victory points. So that means the Russians are a little bit closer to winning the game, because the French have an army breakpoint of 16, whereas the Russian breakpoint is 18. So the Russians only have to get another 5. They might have to get another 6 and exceed the army breakpoint. I'm not sure, I'll check that later. Anyway, so in the end phase, first thing you do is check for reserves, but there are no more to come on now. Then are there any commanders who were put at risk in the last turn? So certainly the chap on the bridge there, the French cuirassiers went thundering past him, so he's going to have to roll. And then also the where is he? That chap there, the commander there, is still within 10, or has been within 10 paces of 2 different units, so he's going to have to check twice. So we'll roll for those first of all. Okay, first of all, the commander on the bridge, British chap who's standing in for a Russian. He rolls a 4, so he doesn't have to move at the moment. And then the ADC in the field behind the Jaeger unit, he has to roll 2 dice. And he's rolled a 4 and a 2. So if they'd rolled 1s, they would have had to have moved. But currently they're not obliged to do that. And next you have to roll for broken units, and that is any units that have disruption markers in excess of the number of stands in the unit, and that certainly applies to those Jaegers there, so they are going to come off the table now. And the only other unit that I can see where that applies is on the French side. Those artillery there only have 1 stand, but they have 2 disruption markers, so they are coming off the table as well. So we have to roll to estimate how many victory points each of those gives to the enemy. Okay, so we'll start with the French howitzer. So they are seasoned, morale value 2. So we roll a d6 and roll high, and that means the Russians gain 4 victory points for that. And then the Jaegers are trained, morale value 1. And again, it's a high score of 5. So that gives the French 3 victory points. Right, well, I've just checked, and you have to be equal to or exceed the army's breakpoint in order to win the game. And the next thing that you have to look at is have any of the battlefield objectives been won. So what I'm trying to say is that the Russians are now on 15 victory points, and they only need to get to 16 in order to win the game. And the battlefield objective that the Russians held at the beginning of the game was to hold the line. So not for the French not to have reached their deployment zone by the end of turn 6. Now, that is in fact the case. They have reached their battlefield objective because the cuirassiers here are just outside of 20 inches from the table edge. If they'd actually done this a turn earlier and managed to charge the guns, then the battlefield objective would have been lost. And as we've discussed earlier, that unit of French line are just not quite in either of the two areas of deployment, so they don't qualify either. So that means that the Russians have won the game, because once you meet a battlefield objective, you roll a d3 and add that to your victory points, but they only need one victory point to win the game. So that is the end of the game. It's a shame. I would have liked to have seen what happened with that cavalry charge on the guns, but it's not going to be, I'm afraid. We'll stick to the rules. And yeah, let's just talk a little bit about the rules again, overview of the battlefield. There we are then. Hope that gives you some idea of how the game plays. I mean, I didn't play particularly well. I mishandled a few of the units there, and probably some of you were sighing in disbelief that I didn't do certain things, and never got to show you the skirmish rule in action, which is a very interesting mechanic. So maybe I should have arranged to do that. So that is another particular element of the game which is quite interesting and innovative. I just don't know how much I can emphasize that how much I like the Sons of series of rules, and I loved Soldiers of God. Soldiers of Rome had a few kind of issues, particularly with things that seemed to me to have been missed out. And Sons of Napoleon, certainly, it seems odd. They advertise it as being a Napoleonic rule set that covers 1805 to 1815, but until some supplements come out, you're not going to be able to play anything else other than the 6th and 7th coalitions, because you do need to have those descriptive kind of statistics, operational advantages and so on, and army characteristics, and they vary from one war to the other. So I think that was an omission. I'm not sure. But hopefully there'll either be some download, or there'll be, I understand from some of your comments that there are other supplements in the mix, ready for the Peninsular War and so on. So look for, I'm certainly going to be getting any of those. And as I say, from now on, in terms of Napoleonic gaming, not that I do a great deal of it, but I'm going to swap from Black Powder to Sons of Napoleon, because I think it just gives you such an interesting and exciting game, and it's full of incident and mishap, like those Russian cuirassiers just refusing to budge off that rocky ground and charge and so on. I just love it, and hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.